Hi, this is Stacy with Gooseberry Bridge Farm, and we are in our pantry, and I'm going to show you around. Okay, so I'm going to focus this year's pantry tour on what's new in our pantry this year, what we put up that we haven't put up other years, what we maybe didn't grow enough of, or plans for next year. Who knows, really. I just kind of go through the whole pantry and I will show you what's here, and we'll see. So one thing I want to discuss before we get started is the horrible quality in this particular part of the video. Video quality is not great. The lighting in here is not great. This is a chandelier over my head. We've got two of those in here with LED lights, and I have some extra lighting, but it makes glares on everything, and when I turn the camera around, I promise it'll be better. Okay, so here is the pantry, and as I was talking about the lighting, you want your pantry to be kind of dark. Light is not good for the food, which is why we've kept the chandeliers and not added any better lighting. We do have a row of windows that goes behind these shelves. This was all windows. Let me back up a little. This wall was windows because this room was our dining room. There. So this was a formal dining room. We put insulation over the windows that goes down to about this level and left them open so they would come through on that bottom shelf. Normally we don't store any canned goods on this bottom shelf. We do have our winter squash stored here right now. The light isn't really going to mess with them. And I have this little section right here of pickles that we really need to eat because they're getting kind of old, and I put them down low so the kids can get them, and so they're not taking up room on the main shelves. So we'll start the tour with like an overview of the room. So as I said, this used to be a dining room, a formal dining room. We cleared all that stuff out and built in these shelves. We started with this side, and then last year we added this one and this one. I think we added them after my last pantry tour video, as I mentioned that. And we also added the ladder, which right now the ladder is kind of in storage mode. If we're going to use the ladder, we have these two notches, and they help us, like we would put it on the upper notch and move it out. I'll show it to you in a few minutes. Okay, so this wall is storage bins. We've got like some regular pantry stuff like plastic bags and cupcake liners and that sort of thing on this shelf, cookie cutters, all of that. This shelf is some, we've got one snack bin and some like sauces and things that we just don't have room for in the rest of the kitchen. And then when you get down here, we have teas and coffees and herbs, and these are all pretty much all herbs. This one is mostly beans that we grew, but I don't have like multiple jars of beans to leave up on the other shelves. And it just, these crates, these are the crates that our tulip bulbs come in, and then you can see they slide on and off the shelves. This one is almost all the way full of pumpkin and other zucchini powder and different freeze-dried powders. We've got some green tomato powder you can make, that's made from freeze-dried green tomatoes. We've also got some shredded zucchini in here, and like this is freeze-dried turmeric, all sorts of stuff, and then a couple bags. And then I've got another one here, and this one doesn't really pull out, and I don't really remember what's in it. And you can pull it out, I just have to scoot this one over. This is the teas, so you can just like scoot it so it's really light, and then I can move this one, and then I can move this one. It's not a perfect system. This is more herbs. This is all our rosemary from this year, some freeze-dried basil, freeze-dried parsley, freeze-dried dill, and I will show you before we're done in here our other new addition for herbs that is in the kitchen. Okay, so we are gonna get all the boring stuff out of the way first. These are more crates. We have all sorts of milk crates to work with. We got them for free, so we are working with what we have. So these crates, as you can probably see from there, we are using to store empty jars. Now, will all these jars, when they are emptied, fit in these crates? Absolutely not. But it gives us enough room to work with up here so that we don't have to like constantly move things to fit empty jars and empty spaces. Now, we also have our milk jars down here, like these bigger ones. These crates are full of like gallon and half-gallon jars. The rest of them are the canning jars. And let's see, it was about October, late October, right after the garden froze and before we actually finished preserving everything, we actually were down to one crate of like pints and half pints and a few stray quarts, and we've already filled up all of these jars. So that's how much we've eaten. We actually got to the point where we didn't have room to put anything else on the shelves at all, and this room was just it was really hard to get in here and everything was all over the floor because there was just no room to work with. So I finally got that cleaned up now that we're in mid-December and we've eaten through all this stuff, and I was able to put that stuff away and get all of our winter squash organized and get everything put up. We still have some tomatoes in the freezer that we need to can. We just moved our cheese fridge in here. I guess I probably should tell you, we just a couple weeks ago got a new milk cow. So we are just like dairy everything right now. So we've had the cheese fridge all year. We were doing goat cheese in the fridge and the milk jars and the milk and all of that. We will have to do another video about that. All right, so to start with things that are new this year, this section right here, these are freeze-dried snow peas or snap peas right here. This year we really expanded our peas. I did some freeze-dried whole, and then I was having a lot of trouble with them freeze-drying all the way through. When I did them like this, it was just taking forever. The freeze dryer sometimes has issues with things inside of other things. So like a pea inside of a pod, because some of them had, you can see right here, had like a tiny pea in the pod, and then the pea was sealed up and it was just too much. So I cut them up, and that really wasn't as hard as it sounds. And I diced them all up, and we went from, oh, there's another jar of whole ones. This year is the first year we've had peas enough to preserve, and we have been eating them. I've eaten several jars mixed in with other freeze-dried veggies. If you're interested in that, we have a video on freeze-dried veggies for dinner, and we use that method to cook most of our freeze-dried veggies. They can also be thrown in like stews or casseroles or anything like that. So we really expanded the peas this year. I also freeze-dried a lot more zucchini and summer squash, which is a big goal of mine because I really like it. That is also in our freeze-dried veggies for dinner video, and we did a lot of onions this year. We grew a lot more onions than we normally do. I'm trying to remember how many we grew. It was something around 300 pounds of onions. It was a lot. We ate a lot of them fresh, and I cured them, and then we ate them. And anyway, these are all freeze-dried onions, plus there's a whole section up here. There's more beans up there. These green jars are freeze-dried kale, and we've also got broth, tomato powder, liver powder, all sorts of stuff like that up there. Lots of freeze-dried broth, and I think there's even some freeze-dried eggs up there on the top shelf. Those are just things we don't use as much. This one is freeze-dried goat milk. It's our last pint of that. It honestly does not taste very good at all, but it is good for feeding sick animals or anything like that. I don't know what it was about freeze-drying the goat milk, but it does not, the flavor was not good. But, you know. So this whole row here is freeze-dried green beans. I did a lot of these skinny kind of, these were the yard-long beans. I did a lot of those this year because they just, grow so prolifically and go so far, but I don't like the flavor of them quite as much as I like this mixture. This was like wax beans, purple beans, and green beans, bush beans together. This we did later in the season. It's prettier and it tastes better. These plain green ones taste better than the yard-long beans too, but it's still nice to have them. We also did some pressure canned beans this year, which we hadn't done since 2020 because we got a new pressure canner, and some things are just nice to have ready to go. So that's that section. Another new thing we did this year was okra. We grew 40 okra plants. These are freeze-dried okra. Dehydrating okra works pretty well too, but for us, the freeze-dried is always better. And we did, with growing 40 plants, we were able to put up quite a lot pretty easily. We did some corn for the first time this year. This jar is not full all the way. I'm not really sure why, but it shows a little bit more of the texture. This is freeze-dried corn. This is fabulous. I would just eat it out of the jar, but I'm gonna try not to. And we also, these are freeze-dried pickles, but that's also freeze-dried, or not freeze-dried, this is canned corn. So we bought this corn from a farm down the road. It's super sweet corn. It was picked and canned within about 24 hours, or picked and freeze-dried within about 24 hours. That preserves the most nutritional value and the flavor and all of that. So we've never done corn before. We've already eaten some of that and we love it. So another thing we did do this year, we grew a lot of extra peppers, like a lot of extra peppers. So these are the peppers that we freeze dried. These are shishito peppers. They're really good, just like stir fried. And then we are pretty sure that it's gonna work from freeze dried, just like it does with the other vegetables, but we haven't actually tried it yet. We also did a lot of just diced sweet peppers like these. They can go in literally anything you would want bell peppers in. And we also did a lot of bigger chunks. This jar again isn't full, but these are just like sweet pepper chips. We did more of these out of the really sweet, really bright bell peppers. This is Anaheim peppers. Get that out of the way. The peppers aren't super organized, but I was planning on these being like chips. You can dip them in hummus or whatever you want to dip your veggie chips in, and they are fabulous. So another new thing we did this year, oh, there they are. We did a lot of freeze-dried cherry tomatoes. Move my peppers around. They are hiding back here. Cherry tomatoes just don't make the best sauce, but they're good a lot of other ways. So if you ever like to roast cherry tomatoes, you can use those for that. You can put them on salads without even rehydrating them. And now I'm really wondering where the rest, that's where the rest are. They're back in this dark corner. And these are spoon cherry tomatoes. This is the size they are. And they are very tasty. These I freeze-dried specifically for salads. And also the sweeter cherry tomatoes, like some of these varieties, these are Sun Sugars and Sun Golds, and they are so sweet that you can just eat them like this. It's like a snack, which is always good with all the little people we have here. Another new thing we did this year was canning potatoes, which wasn't completely new. We've canned potatoes before, and these are dehydrated hash browns that we also made from our potatoes, but we've canned our potatoes before. We just never did anywhere near this many. They're very convenient because you can just dump them out and brown them, or dump them out and put them into whatever recipe calls for cooked potatoes. So very handy to have around. We also started water glassing eggs last spring, which is what this is. This is a partially used jar. I think we had 3 or 4 gallons on the shelf when we started. When our chickens slowed down, Molly's been using them for baking, and it's been great. All right, one more new thing this year. This doesn't look very pretty, but this is French onion soup. It has a lot of extra onions in it. So if I were making regular French onion soup with this, I would probably take a jar of beef broth and cut it. So like one beef broth, one soup, and then add some fresh herbs or dried herbs, freeze-dried herbs. We have a lot more broth hidden back here in the corner. So some things I just don't need access to as readily. So that's what I've been putting in the corners of this setup, because it's kind of inconvenient to get back there. All right, so I think that's pretty much all of the new things in our pantry this year. So I will just go over the rest really quick and talk about a few things we did not make this year. Okay, so you all know that my goal is to eat all of this food in a year, and sometimes, or maybe 2 years tops. Sometimes I get, I go a little overboard on things, like up here. This is all 2022 hot sauce. We have used some of it, but I made way too much. We've used probably a dozen or so jars, and I probably made 50 half pints, and you just can only eat so much hot sauce. So this year, even though we grew record numbers of peppers, I did not make any new hot sauce. So that was, you know, holding back. I also did not can any jalapenos. This is all, these are pickles, or pickles for that matter. I didn't do any new pickles because we still had 10 or so jars of pickles from last year, plus the older pickles down here. These are all pickled peppers, jalapenos, spicy stuff. I did do some of these pickled peppers that are a little more mild. They're the pepperoncinis or pepper on whatever. I probably did too many of those. I gave some to a friend, and we have more than we need. And these are all pickled jalapenos. I'm making it kind of a goal to try to use those this year, and then we can do new ones next year. Oh, I found another new thing. I almost forgot about this. Now this is broth that just is down here. This one, freeze-dried broth. So this is just a powder, and you add a little bit of water and you have broth. I do have 1 jar of freeze-dried asparagus. Just that was an experiment. It looks like there's a section of pickles here, and I don't know why. No idea why that's there. But this is freeze-dried spinach, and it's not powdered. Usually I do that powdered. And then a lot of this is all freeze-dried cabbage, chopped cabbage. Got a few jars of that here. We grew Napa cabbage this year. It goes all the way over. And I've never grown or preserved that before. We did have a few issues. This is kale powder, and I can put our broth back in here. This is kind of the stuff that used to be down here, but is now all the way up there. So I did have a few issues with the kale, or not the kale, the cabbage being completely done in the freeze dryer. And like this one is kind of a more dull color than this one, and it's not because of light exposure. It's because I'm pretty sure this one wasn't entirely freeze dried all the way, and it's just a little bit softer. And I'm not really sure if we're gonna eat it or not. I just have it in here for when we have time to figure that out, so I can get these jars back in. This is typically our fruit and jelly section. I would love to keep all this more organized. It is hard. Anytime I want to move things around to make room for new stuff, it's a lot of work. And now that I've got this counter cleaned off, I could do it. I could move everything down and then move it over and then put it back. But this counter was completely covered for the last about 6 months with more food. So just being able to put it all up was pretty much impossible. But this is all applesauce. We've got 1 jar of freeze-dried apples. We just had some extra and threw them in a batch that'll probably get eaten pretty soon. And this section is all peach sauce. So applesauce, peach sauce. Peaches, there's a small section of freeze-dried bananas. When we get a good deal on bananas, we freeze-dry them. By the way, we tried freeze-drying banana puree this year. Don't do it. Just don't. It was bad. It went everywhere. Okay, so more jelly. We have strawberry here, and that is last year's strawberry. We have this year's freeze-dried strawberries, freeze-dried peaches. Freeze-dried peaches are amazing. Great snack. They taste so good. It's like candy. And over here, next to our broccoli that's kind of misplaced, this is this year's strawberry jam and peach jam. So we got peaches this year, they were not even local peaches. We always buy our peaches, usually from a local farm. This year, all the peaches in our area froze, so these were imported from Virginia. And we canned some, made freeze-dried peaches, and made some peach jam. We usually make peach jelly too, but I'm not sure if any of this is peach jelly. Molly does all of that. This is all apple syrup. There's some watermelon, lemon juice, all sorts of fun stuff here. So the broccoli in the middle of tomatoes and jelly, that was something we just did this week. We got a good deal on broccoli and filled the freeze dryer with that. It can go with the other veggies, but you know, I had a spot there, so I put it there, even though it's not really the right category. But this is all salsa. This is salsa also, and I'm not really sure why we have 2 levels with salsa in them. But tomato sauce, and like seriously, who put the salsa in the middle of the tomato sauce? That was probably me. But we're going to be adding more tomato sauce at some point. This is dramatically less tomato sauce than we intended to grow, than we want to grow. The salsa, if really these are all salsa, we probably got it about right for what we need for the year. But the tomato sauce that we use on spaghetti and pizza and all the things, this is just not enough. Well, I said we do have some tomatoes in the freezer that we need to can. I don't think we'll get more than maybe 8 or 10 more quarts out of that. But it is what it is at this point. We just had a bad year for tomatoes. It was really dry, it was really wet, and tomatoes don't like rain. Our tomatoes are all just outside. That's why a tunnel would be good for tomatoes, but then if we get a super hot summer like we did 2 years ago, they would be too hot in there. So it just doesn't always work out. Usually in our area in Southwest Missouri, it's super easy to grow tomatoes and they do really, really well. So some years are excellent and some suck, like this year. So next year we are planning to grow about twice as many tomato plants, and we are trying to get a buffer built back into our tomato sauce, because last year we grew we had averaged a good year, and we used up our tomato sauce right about the time we started picking the 2023 tomatoes. So for 2024, we're going to expand, and hopefully, because we're probably going to run out of this sauce in March or something, unless we really ration it. But so for 2024, we're going to plant twice as many plants and focus really heavily on sauce. I want 130 quarts of tomato sauce on the shelves, all the salsa, tomato soup, and ketchup. We want to do ketchup again. We did ketchup a few years ago. I think I did last year. I did ketchup. We didn't have enough. Ketchup takes a ton of tomatoes. You cook them down really, really thick, or you can freeze dry them and then use the tomato powder to speed up the process. But we didn't have enough this year to do that. So it takes so much, and we needed the sauce. So anyway, if you really are into that sort of thing, the garden planning, how much to grow, how much you get from growing a certain number of plants with a relatively low input, low work method. We don't use any commercial fertilizers or synthetic stuff or anything like that. All of our tomatoes are fertilized with manure from our rabbits and goats and whatever else we decide to put on them. And so anyway, I share a lot of that in my gardening videos. I've been talking too much, clearly. So there's just a few more things I can show you in here, and then we're gonna be done with this video. Another video I'll have coming up soon is our seed haul video for 2023 with the 2024 seeds. I haven't even opened the boxes yet. I'm waiting to make a video, and that's probably it. All right, so one of the other things I can show you in here that's new this year are these buckets. We've always had buckets, but we did not have the buckets with the gamma lids. These are Wallaby buckets. There is a link to these in the description. We also use, wow, that is dirty. There's herbs and salt all over this bucket. Anyway, it was in the kitchen and that's what happens. So these lids, if you're not familiar with them, screw on and seal. This is our, this is sugar that is directly in the bucket, and then it can be closed up really easily. Don't have to worry about snapping these lids on and off. I think this one has rice. Yeah, there's an open bag of rice in there. And we also keep cornmeal in the bucket. We will have millet grain. We are all gluten-free and grind all our own flours. So we've got a couple more buckets with those lids. These white lids on the soy sauce buckets that we got for free. They're on Amazon and linked in our storefront in case you you have buckets but just want the lids. I also have this stash back here of Mylar. Out this, there we go. These are Wallaby Mylar bags. We use these to store freeze-dried foods, especially the smaller ones. These are the gallon bags. The MRE bags are great for like meal-sized stuff. I will show you some of those in a second. But these are just the best Mylar bags. I've tried everything. They are a lot thicker and sturdier. I'm not like a super huge fan of the black bags because you can't just write directly on the bag, but they do give you labels, so I should probably get over it. We use these to store when we buy bulk grains, which I did a whole video on that. Like this bag is buckwheat, chocolate chips. There's a jar of buckwheat too. All sorts of stuff like that. We are kind of low on, got my ladder pocket. Those black bags are all chocolate chips. We're low on grains right now. I've got an order we're picking up in a couple of days with millet, and I don't remember what else, and that's our last bag of rice, so we will have to buy some more of that. But normally we keep a lot more on hand. This is the MRE size Mylar bag. We ran out of jars, I told you earlier, late in the season, so we did a lot of smaller bags of beans, and I don't even know what else is in here. All of these crates are full of food in Mylar bags. We've added probably 4 or 5 crates this year. We don't really get into that as much since freeze-dried food in Mylar with oxygen absorbers can last 20 to 30 years. That is more of our like long-term, just in case sort of food, which like I was talking about the tomatoes, I'd really like to get some tomato powder into that storage. I don't have any right now in there. I have green beans, I have squash, I have apples, strawberries. I'm trying to think of what else is in there. There's like chili and some like ready to eat food. We don't have any tomato products, and I don't like that. I really like to be able to use tomato. I think we have onions in there too. So the jars and everything you see there that looks pretty, that is our food that we plan to eat within the next year or so, where the Mylar is more long-term and more of a just-in-case sort of thing. But a lot of that just-in-case for us is not what most people think of when they think of prepping and just-in-case. Ours is just in case we have a crop failure or something along those lines, or we get too busy and forget to pick something. Like this year I planted 2 successions of green beans because the first one I got too busy and didn't pick enough, and we only preserved about half of what we normally would have from that planting. All right, because I said I would show off the ladder, here it is, attached to the bar. I can slide it down this way. I can put it across here, anywhere on this wall. I also have this new situation here. Let's see if I can zoom out. This pocket that I put on here, it has pockets on both sides. For like, I could put like my pens and other things in there and not have to come up and down the ladder or carry it up the ladder. Kind of wish pockets were bigger, but I'm liking it so far. Up on the top shelf up here, we have that's where I store our canner when we're not using it. We have a olive oil stash we got at a discount grocery store. We've got vinegars, both homemade and store-bought, maple syrup. There is some wine up there that my husband made, and our secret stash of chips. Don't tell the kids. Another thing I store up there on the end, it doesn't look it as much on the camera, but this beam makes it pretty difficult to get into this shelf, which is why I don't really want to keep a lot up there. So I have all my loofahs up there, both peeled and ready to go and not peeled. And we keep our stash of egg cartons up there in the back. We haven't done our 2023 honey yet. It's actually still in the freezer. When you get behind on things, the freezer is your friend. But this is our 2022 honey. Our 2023 honey still needs to be extracted. I'm sure we will do a video when we do that. Our main issue at this point is that it is December, and in order to use the honey extractor, it has to be 80 degrees. So we're gonna have to cook up our house. So that's pretty much it for our 2023 pantry tour. We have like one more thing we're going to add to our pantry in the next year. We've added all of this year. I will show you the last section that needs shelves built in and storage, and my plans there. Hey, Molly's here.
Hi. I'm waiting for you to be done taking a video so that I can use the grain mill.
I'm gonna show them the grain mill.
Loud.
All right, so this area is the end of the corner. There's Molly by the door. This antique buffet thing is really lovely and all, but not the best use of space. So we do have salt and tapioca starch and sorghum flour, or grain. We can't get sorghum in big bags anymore, so we get it in small bags and keep it in there. And the cabinet is good for some things, but this is our little like grain mill counter. I've got a little bit of stuff sitting on there from this filming. We love our new grain mill. I need to put a link to that in the description. And here we're gonna turn around. We have this blue bookshelf that's been in here for years. Clearly not the best storage solution. We've got our homemade vinegars and fire cider and supplements and these big rice bags. These are the bags our rice comes in. This isn't actually rice. These are dry beans waiting to come out of their pods. Those look pretty rough. Let's see what these are. There, beans in pods. Lots of them. So many. If you watched my video last year, we had a lot of beans in pods, and ooh, this is a pillowcase full of beans, and we have these beans and those beans that have been sitting there for at least a year, maybe 2 years. I mean, they're really nice beans. These This is a fun tidbit of information. These are beans from a drought year, so they look pristine. Let's see if I can get one open with my left hand to show you these beans. These are navy beans, so they're little white beans. I'll get them out of there eventually. So these beans with all the kind of mildew spots on them are beans from a wet year. So the beans get all gross. The beans inside are fine, inside these pods, but we still need to get them out. And I have about this much still sitting out on the porch, on the plants. We pulled the plants into crates and put them on the porch. There's one more bag somewhere. Oh, there it is. There's the last bag hanging up with our aprons. So maybe this year we'll make a winter project and finally take all the beans out of the pods and put them in jars, and we'll see. It could happen. And then our plan beyond that is to start canning the beans. And like I was talking earlier about buffers, in 2020, 2021, we bought quite a lot of organic dry beans while we were still building up our ability to grow them. This year I am planning to add a lot more dry beans to our garden, and if we actually get all these out of the pods, I'll have a little bit better idea of what I need. I know my one little section of bush dry beans only makes about 2 to 3 quarts of beans a year. That's, you know, maybe a few meals for us. There's so many of us, so we'll see. Hi, Molly.
What's up?
I feel like we should do a kitchen tour. Does everybody want a kitchen tour?
It's a mess in here.
It is a mess.
It's a big mess. I haven't done the dishes because you're...
Alright, so I mentioned a little bit ago my new herb area in the kitchen. This is it. This is, there's also some baking stuff over there, herb salts, freeze-dried herbs, taco seasoning, pizza seasoning, Italian seasoning, all of that sort of stuff, plus all of our less used herbs and spices and things we just don't have as much of on the top. And
this is my cake dyeing stuff.
Yes, your cake dyeing stuff. So we have some beets and I don't remember, turmeric. Yeah. Anyway, we don't use any artificial dyes, so that's basically our food coloring. Anyway, what I wanted to show you though is that these are just there's a little bit of gap between the walls, so they come out about 4 inches. It only takes up a very minimal amount of counter space, but gives you like a lot of options as far as keeping things accessible. Really like it. Molly's over there dropping hats, but we also added this double oven cabinet this year. Just this year, last month, right before Thanksgiving. Our oven used to be over here. We're still working on what to fill in that hole with, and potatoes. Right now we have potatoes there, and Molly was using sugar as a cheese weight. And we have our cast iron up here above our brand new gas stove.